And you've been sitting much too long, much too long. Welcome, 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 welcome to Truth, a radio program designed with you in mind, a program whose sole purpose is to empower you, our listeners, for information needs the knowledge, and knowledge is, you got it, power. And as always, I want to empower you to take control of your life, those things that impact you. I'm waiting for you guys to finish it. You, your family, and the community. And as always, I want you to go to the website at www.gwen-truth.com so you can access all of those all-important links that will lead you to that all-important information that will make you what? All-powerful. All-powerful. As has been stated, I'm Gwen Azama-Edwards, former city commissioner, retired city clerk, city of Daytona Beach, author, minister, St. John Missionary Baptist Church, Incorporated in Holly Hill, Florida, and community volunteer, person who loves you, loves the community, loves, everybody. In truth, you can love everybody. You don't have to like what they say, you don't have to like what they do, but you can love them, and you won't make it to heaven without doing just that, right? Amen, amen, amen. Shout outs to our veterans. Shout out to our veterans. I had a discussion with a young man today who was talking about whether or not veterans were actually heroes and some of the reasoning behind the wars that we got involved in and the like. And the bottom line is that, and he and I agreed on this, they're heroes because they went for their country. They went for their country, irrespective of whatever the bottom line reason was that we were going and invading this place or that place. Our veterans are heroes because they went to do service for their country, which is our country. So God bless our veterans, and a shout out to each and every one of you, irrespective of the wars that you were involved in. Even if it was a no-name skirmish, we thank you, and our hats off to you. Amen. Shout out also to Maya Angelou and her family, and a lady who will be remembered, to kind of show how some people really don't know about the history of people or what they're really about. I read something on YouTube where the lady said, "We're glad that you sat on the bus, that you took that seat and did not get up." Praise God. Anyway, great poet, writer. She actually even appeared in some Tyler Perry shows, movies, and I'm sure other things as well. But she was a deep thinker. And what I wrote on Facebook about her is that the lady was for real. She was a person who was about realness, and that's what she wrote about. That's what she spoke about. That's the life that she lived. And if you really want to do service to her in her memory, then you be real too. All right? Hey, praise God. Shout out also, I just heard this as I was preparing to come to the show in terms of Representative David Hood's son and his death. So shout out goes to he and his family who requested that they be given the privacy that they're desirous of and deserving of at this time of concern, this time of the need for consolement, and really just that quiet time to just be with them themselves and the Lord. So shout out to them, and there's nothing worse. I'm sure there are some things that are bad, but for parents there's nothing worse than losing your child. So our sympathy goes to them in this time, and we just give you a shout out because we know this is a very tragic and unfortunate time for you and your family. So God bless you is our prayer. Okay, we have tonight two ladies who are going to talk with us so that you all in the listening audience, those of you who are part of the city of Daytona Beach, those of you who may be going through a charter review for your charter, which is, for those who have home rule, your charter is your constitution, okay? That is what determines how the city will go about doing its business. It really gives the framework for how that city will operate. It talks about the form of government, and it talks about various members in terms of the leadership, administrative leadership, city attorney, city manager, for this city of Daytona Beach, as well as the commission members, the mayor, and the city commissioners. The Charter Review Commission got a little, oh, how best to say this? I guess they were a little unsure about what the commission was, because they felt the commission were all of the commissioners and did not include the mayor. But the city commission, just like a city council, consists of your mayor and your other elected officials, be it councilmen, council persons, or commissioners. Anyway, that's your lesson for tonight. But we have two members of the Save Our Neighborhoods group who have pulled together some citizens' comments. These were consensus recommendations that they have presented to the Charter Review Commission along the way. Some of these ideas, and then they will be in total presented. But the president of the Save Our Neighborhood Association, Weegie Kuendig, and another member who represents one of the subdivisions in the city of Daytona Beach, Johnnie, they too will share with us in terms of what those recommendations are. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, just very quickly in terms of the evaluations of two of the three constitutional officers for the city of Daytona Beach. That's the city clerk, the city attorney, and the city manager. Two of them who are evaluated by the commission and are hired by the commission. That's the city attorney and city manager. They were recently evaluated. And then we're going to talk about some issues that are going on in the various neighborhoods and communities. Johnnie has a couple of things that she wants to just get out there and put out there so that you guys are familiar with it, and you can help in solving and resolving a couple of issues of things that are going on. And Weegie has, I've got to say, Weegie, before we get into what we're going to talk about, I've told this lady, I have said to her, thank you, in many, many times, many, many ways. I don't know too many citizens, non-paid volunteers, who will go to the extent that she has. Well, there was one, Sheila McCabe. But I mean, go to the extent, Weegie, that you have in keeping the citizens, the residents of Daytona Beach informed about meetings that are going on, key issues that will be discussed that's on the agenda for those meetings, especially commission meetings. I mean, you just go above and beyond. Have you ever been recognized at the Juneteenth Heroes?
I hear that may happen this year.
Wonderful, because it should.
Thank you for that, Gwen. That's nice of you to say.
It definitely should, because man, you are definitely a hometown hero with everything that you do for us, for all of us. Because I'm a resident. I'm on the voters and they don't be too. But thank you for all that you do. And too many times I think that people don't know what's going on. Too many of them don't want to know. And then there are those who want to be more involved, but they don't know how. So your sharing really, I think, is opening up not only doors, but opportunities for people to get to know what's going on so that they can come out and get involved. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too before we go off the air. But share with, let's just kick it off, Weegie, with your sharing with the listeners. What are some of the recommendations that Save Our Neighborhoods has actually reached consensus on that they really would like to see the Charter Review Commission not just consider, because you've given it to them, and some of them they just not. You might just say too in terms of what's happening with those things as far as the Charter Review Commission is concerned as well. So the citizens know, what are the concerns, what are the issues as the citizens see it, as the residents of Daytona Beach see it.
Well, I think we came up with a list after a lot of hard work and a lot of help from you, and that was really appreciated, because you have held many positions in the city, and you've been on Charter Review, you've been a commissioner, you've been a city clerk, so we knew that you understood that, and you're part of Save Our Neighborhoods. And there were many citizens that came together, and we worked very hard to come up with a list where there was consensus. And so they have been presented. Not too many of them made the list of things to consider, but we were given time to present our list. And one of the things that I think that we thought was very important was that a residency requirement for people that are on the boards. We would have liked that to have seen that come into the charter, and residency for people, some of the major positions on staff, the department heads. We just feel that people that live in the city have a bigger stake in what actually our neighborhoods look like and feel like, and we'd like to see that happen. And that was something that people weren't, that didn't go anywhere either. We talked about term limits.
Well, let's talk a tiny bit about those two issues, which have to do with residency. And those who are listeners who reside in Flagler County, because we have listeners up there, we have listeners Port Orange and Ormond Beach, and Port Orange and Ormond Beach, we know rarely, if ever, do they have non-residents serving on their city
That is
boards.
correct.
It's only in this city where you see the preponderance of, I have to call them outsiders because they don't reside here, who are serving on the boards. And one of the points that you made, because people say, well, we want to have business people. Well, you have business people who do live.
We have wonderful business people who live in our community.
Yes,
I don't think there's a shortage of business people that have businesses in our city that also choose to live in our city. And I think we're beyond, I think it's, been a long time that this idea has, not even taken hold, that we are perfectly capable. I believe in the citizens of Daytona Beach, and we are perfectly capable of running our own affairs.
And the decisions, the recommendations that go to the commission from these boards are recommendations that those residents and citizens have to live with.
Right.
So why not then have them more involved and truly
they have a
years
bigger
ago,
stake in it
absolutely.
if they live here.
And it's the way that it used to be years ago until, it was changed a few years back. But you guys would like to see that then brought back to the forefront with the importance of that being not only supported, truly supported.
Right. Now, there was an ordinance that was passed a few years ago. We have worked on this issue for a very long time, and there was an ordinance passed that said that the majority of people that are selected for the boards have to live in Daytona Beach. But just as you said, the other cities around us and in most places in the country have electors on their boards. You have to live there and vote there before you get a place on an advisory board or any kind of board.
Right, and they made reference to the ordinance that was passed when I was on the commission, but that ordinance did not go far enough. We tried, but we couldn't get it far enough. And then an ordinance was passed by when Mayor Glenn Ritchie was the mayor of the commission and or head of the commission, and they actually, because of a lot of citizen support for this issue, they did pass an ordinance, but what they did was to grandfather in everybody who the city manager had hired wrongly, because it was against the ordinance that was in place. Having those people continue because they said they couldn't find a place to stay because, it was so costly to live in Daytona Beach. You make over $100,000 a year, you can't afford to stay here. Who would think? But that they also then looked at, I believe, the over 100,000.
Yes, but and it
range.
was unclear to me whether they were talking about salary or salary and benefits.
Right.
And that would put a few more people into the category of over 100, and I don't think that was made clear.
Because generally your benefits are anywhere from 25 to 30-some% of your total salary package.
Right, so
yes.
I don't know, it wasn't made clear yet, and, well, actually, it's not going to be made clear because they decided not to do that, but we certainly will present that to the commission.
I think basically they decided to stick with the ordinance that was in place,
Yeah.
that was passed, under Mayor Ritchie at the time,
Mhm.
about the 100,000, and like you're saying, it's still not clear about whether that includes benefits, and, grandfathering in all those who,
Right,
live
which I
outside
thought
the
was
city.
fair. I mean, really, this economy, in the last 5 years has been awful, and it's been particularly hard in the housing market, and it is difficult for people to sell their houses and move.
Mhm.
But things are moving forward now, and things are,
Hallelujah.
yes, hopefully things are getting back to normal, and I really don't think it's too much to ask department heads now. You may wanna call them a different name, and, you know, that may not be charter language per se, but the city attorney certainly could.
But they understood the intent.
Right,
The
the
intent
intent,
was
right.
that it's that head person
Right.
of the department, and, that deputy would fit into that as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And there are some positions where the middle management would actually fit
Right.
into that, in terms of the salary, threshold that they had agreed upon. Okay, well, as long as our listeners understand, those two issues are key and important. And, you know, they're important and they're being looked at in other areas as well. I believe it's, Deltona, where they're looking at whether or not there should be the requirement for the city manager to live in the city. And, I believe they did talk about the Charter Review Commission, as did your residents, or the residents for Save Our Neighborhood, talk about the fact that the city manager should definitely be required, along with the others, to live in the city. Yeah, because that wasn't totally understood, even in the other ordinance as well. Okay, so we got those two, and there was no movement on it, other than just
No,
status quo, pretty much.
pretty much status quo on that one, and what we had down was a simple majority of the commission shall be needed to terminate the employment of the city manager or, the city attorney. Now, this is kind of a hard subject, because it almost seems as though they have the power to do that, a simple majority, but because of the contract that the city manager was able to negotiate, it has to be a supermajority to change city managers. So that is something, and so that was something else that didn't get much of a hearing. They
And-
talked about it, but
And one of the things,
it's not moving on.
Right, one of the things, one of the members, of that, body mentioned at your meeting last night, Gary Libby, was that those who were proponents of going with a simple majority, which out of 7 would be 4 out of 7, state that in the charter it says that actions are taken by that majority, simple majority. So that's how they define the quorum, and he felt that the contract should fall under that as well, but the city attorney and Mayor Gwen Ritchie, the chair of the commission, did not agree, and others, I would suppose, did not agree as well. It's good enough for other stuff, but not good enough or when it comes to the contract.
Right, and something else that we think is really important too is the petition language in our charter. Our charter has, right now, if it's not changed, makes it very difficult for the citizens to petition our government for change. And so we wanted to strengthen that and make it at least the same way that you can do it at the state level or the county level.
Right, right. I believe our percentage is something like 20 or 25.
Right.
Believe
And the
20.
county, I think, is 5%.
Yes, yes.
And that's a huge difference, and it makes
Absolutely.
it very difficult to change anything by petition. So and I think that's really important for the citizens of Daytona Beach.
Absolutely, and we only have to look at the stand petitions from a couple of years or so ago, where they got over 8,000 signatures for changes that they wanted to see put before the people, and the city found all kinds of reasons not to approve that.
Right.
Even something like all those things had to be bound together.
And that has not been talked about at the Charter Review Commission yet. It is on their list to talk about.
Mhm.
But I think at their next meeting, they will talk about it. And I think, frankly, from my perspective, it's one of the most important things that there is.
Absolutely.
Because it talks about residents petitioning their government. And I think we have a right to do that. And
Absolutely.
there shouldn't be a lot of roadblocks
Mhm.
to do that.
And really, that should be considered right up there along with their right to vote.
I think so too.
The right
Absolutely.
to petition your government. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so that's something then that's waiting for the next meeting, which is Monday, which is supposed to be the last meeting. It's Tuesday?
I think it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday,
Yeah.
okay, I think that's the 3rd.
Yeah.
June 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay, at 6.
I'm not sure, but I think it is Tuesday. They're back to Tuesdays now. They did a couple Monday meetings, but I think they're now back to Tuesdays.
Okay,
I'll let everybody know.
Okay, so we'll just say to our audience as we're recording this that, and as you're listening, that it will either be Monday or Tuesday of next week, in the commission chambers, and it starts at 6 p.m.
It does.
And that is supposed to be the last meeting, the wrap-up meeting, and the last discussion of the final items and wrap-up of language, etc. for that, the report that will be presented to the City Commission. And so everyone understands, this Charter Review Commission comes up with recommendations, suggestions for changes to the city charter. They give those in the form of a report to the City Commission, our elected body. And the elected body then will vote to accept their report, but then they will decide whether or not they will take action on any part of, in total or in part, or not at all, the recommendations that has come from that August body. And they then can also, the City Commission, once they've done that, they actually can on their own come up with ballot issues that they wish to put before the citizens. They need not be bound by what the Charter Review Commission presents to them, but they do have a right to put whatever they want, as does any political body, have the right to put whatever they wish to have placed on the ballot before the people. And these items will be, if there are any, from wherever they will come from, if there are any, they will be voted on in the primary election, as I understand, August 26th.
That's right, and that's why it would be very hard for them to schedule for the Charter Review Commission to schedule another meeting so that they can get it on, beyond the one they're having now. I mean, it's possible if they did it, one day after another, but they have to have a date certain where all the recommendations have to be in by the state law and by our own city laws.
Yes, because they will have 2 public hearings where any of the issues, if any, will be brought before the people during a public meeting where the citizens and residents or whomever, anybody really can come forward and share and provide their input.
The public will get a time to speak.
Right, and they said it would be 2, so that's great. And we will mention too that they have also, this Charter Review Commission has gone out into the community, I believe, in 3 locations. The Midtown, did they go to Midtown? Dickerson or Peabody?
They went to the Peabody, they went to Midtown Center.
And where was the third one? Peabody Midtown Center. And
Was it Yvonne Scarlett Golden or?
No.
Yeah, because I thought there was.
Oh, they had one over at where we have our meetings at the City Island Rec Center.
Oh, okay, okay. all
And
right.
at that point, they did give Mayor Ritchie, as the chair, did give everyone opportunity to get up. And
all who attended.
all who attended were allowed to speak. There weren't time limits. They were allowed to speak and hand in whatever they wanted handed in to be considered. So that was done. We unfortunately didn't have as many people there as we wanted, but as Save Our Neighborhoods as a group went to every single one of those meetings. I've been there just a few, and we spoke.
Right. And we will mention too that when they've had their meetings at City Hall, Commission Chambers, they also, at the tail end of the meeting, allow citizens to come up and provide input as well.
That's true, but there was I thought that there was a little problem with having the citizens speak after all the votes had been taken.
Yeah.
It made it difficult. You know, if you lose a vote, you have to be a good sport about it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And even though maybe some of these items will come back, I don't think there's that much time left to get these items back.
It seems as though the way they've been moving, and when they're in commission chambers, you can, by the way, watch it on TV. It's
Absolutely.
channel 199, if you have Bright House.
Mhm.
But you also have opportunities, I believe, to even send emails
Yes.
to the city clerk
Yeah.
and provide input that way.
Yeah, everything is on the website
Yes,
too.
yes, the minutes are there and everything else. If you go to the City of Daytona Beach website, you can click on the information to make yourself available, to avail yourself of all information regarding the Charter Review Commission. So we will say that they really have made every effort to keep it as open as possible and allow the public to provide some input. There has not been a lot of public participation, but Save Our Neighborhoods has been, as you said, very much involved, and it's tried to keep other people informed about what's going on, as has the city clerk and the Charter Review Commission, to the extent that they have as well. Okay, so what were some other, now you had mentioned term limits too, like it was 8, like if it was a 4-year term.
That was a very interesting discussion
Yeah.
within our own group, but what we finally came up with is that you basically could serve 2 4-year terms,
Mhm.
and if you sat out, then you could be reelected again. So they were consecutive, 8 years consecutive,
Right,
8
right.
consecutive years.
Mhm.
But that at that point, you would need to sit out and give someone else a chance. I mean, our feeling is that without term limits, people get entrenched and they become less sensitized to what's going on in the community because they keep getting elected, and sometimes it's because no one's running against them, but, and frankly, there are a lot of people that have term limits. The President of the United States has term
Mhm.
limits, so I don't know why we need to be.
The House and the Senate.
The House and the
Even though
Senate,
they've been
right.
trying to get rid of it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
so-
8 is enough.
Right, so we felt that was the consensus that we reached.
And it being 8 consecutive years, that was in case if they ever went back to from 4 years to 2
2
years,
years,
then
right.
it would be
It
4
was-
straight
right.
2-year terms,
Right.
or 2 4-year
Yeah,
terms.
that's,
8 being the definitive number, but that didn't go anywhere either.
All right, now, another thing we talked about, it was the time requirement for a special election of a commission due to a vacancy. We wanted to reduce that from 12 months down to 6 months.
Yes, and to
We
me,
thought
that
that was
is the most
important.
important one of them all.
Yeah,
But that didn't get any traction either.
I don't think that made the list.
Okay.
There are a few things that didn't make the list.
Because there are really have been instances where people have just hung on and hung on and hung on till they made it over that point, and then, so that they could end up appointing somebody. And to appoint someone for 12 months, that really provides that incumbent, they then become an incumbent, anytime that they've served, but a long term for that
Right.
incumbent, such that they have a much greater advantage over anyone
Correct.
else that runs for office. So 12 months is an awfully long time for the commission to make an appointment. And I believe the recommendation, by legal, is that because she was concerned about it being the exact 12 months.
Exactly.
And then whether or not, how do you make a decision, is the 12 month reached or not?
Mhm.
And I believe she came up with a way to tell in the event that happened, to tell whether or not they'd be able to actually do it or not. And I think it's the time period, because they actually are inducted into office, that the time is 6 p.m. on a particular date.
Correct.
Yes, and then they take office at a certain time period as well. So depending on the time, if the person were to position were to to become vacant. You know, the person dropped dead right exactly at 6 o'clock. I mean, I think there's probably a little reaction going on that might carry it over a minute, right? Something. I mean, you know, I'm sure you do have to make sure that you do look at every possible circumstance, but the bottom line is that there's a way to know that. And really, you'd have a lot less of that going on if you were looking at the 6 months. But anyway, that didn't get any traction either.
That didn't either, and you know, there has been a lot of talk about the consent agenda, and the reason that I feel there's so much talk about the consent agenda is because there are a lot of items now on the consent agenda, and sometimes it totals millions of dollars, and there's no discussion about it. Now, some of these items aren't very sexy items. They're, you know, they have to deal with water, you know, parts for water machines and
contracts or whatever.
And contracts, but it still represents an awful lot of money. So there's concern.
Either purchases or it's money that's coming into the city for a specific purpose, money that's being paid out. I mean, it should be important to someone. And there used to be really a cap on how much you could put, the item would be worth that you put on the consent agenda, but that's out the window too.
And we talked about that. That was an item at Save Our Neighborhoods that took up a lot of time. We tried different numbers. We tried to make all kinds of different things work.
Percentages and the like.
Because I think some of the commissioners are under the impression that they really don't have enough. Well, they are allowed to pull items from the consent agenda. But I'd like citizens now at this point to be able, if they ask a commissioner to pull an item from the consent agenda, I would like to see it happen. Because right now it is at the discretion of the commissioner. You could call a commissioner and say, you know, I'd like you to pull this. They're not bound to do that. A lot of times they do it. But there are instances where they do not do it, and these things, you know, some of these things that really deserve discussion, just get right past.
As opposed to just, and years ago that was done too. Under Mayor Asher, he would actually allow citizens. He'd ask them, members of the audience, citizens who would like to have something pulled from the agenda. This was when we first started, because that consent agenda we followed Volusia County. We actually modeled it after them. I was city clerk at the time, so I really, and that's what we did. But he would ask, and they'd say certain numbers. Somebody call out this number, that number. We make note of it, and as they did that, as city clerk, I'm pulling those items aside, and they would allow those items then to be added to whatever the commissioners requested. You know, there would be some people who would say, well, that's a little unwieldy. No, it really wasn't. And we had one citizen who always wanted about 5 or 6. But they would do it because we wanted to be as open as we could be. And, you know, I applaud the mayor, Mayor Asher, for that. But that was the desire. We weren't trying to, at the time that we had the consent agenda, which we copied from the county, we weren't trying to stop people from talking. We were just trying to speed up the process a little bit more, because, you know, at that time we were having meetings that went to 12 o'clock, and they voted at 12. Do we go over another half hour or an hour or whatever? I mean, it really was kind of a crazy situation, but it didn't have to do with the residents pulling items. It had to do with the commission members and their lack of agreement, etc. So it does help. It you know, it sends a message to your residents, your citizens, that you care about what they think, that you want them to be as informed as possible.
And something else that the Charter Review Commission is going to take up at the next time is sharing of agenda powers between the City Commission and the City Manager. And I think this is something that Gary Libby's going to support very strongly, is that he wants to kind of equalize things more than they are now. The City Manager kind of has taken over the agenda, and it's it becomes difficult for the commissioners to get items on the agenda they can be put off a month or 2 months or 6 months. So that's something that we support completely, even though some people think, and maybe rightly so, that that power is already in the charter. But if we just make the language a little stronger, it might equalize things a little more.
And it probably should be stated to our listeners that the city manager's job is administration. His major responsibility is to carry out those things that have been voted on and approved by the commission. So, and in terms of the commission making its decisions, he's to provide that information, he or she, that would allow them to make the best informed and educated decision that they can, based on that information that is provided. And many commission members, based on whether or not, the lack of whatever information is provided, will go a little beyond just listening to what staff says and do their own little research in terms of their decision making. But it's the manager's job to carry out those things that have been voted by the commission. And his job then is to pull that agenda together. But if an elected official requests, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around this thing. Requests that something be put on the agenda for discussion or for action, that the manager would say or show by his lack of responsiveness that will not happen. I don't care what you say, it's not going to happen. And I'm told that several members of the current commission have that problem with the city manager. But these are the same people who rated him as 3s and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
And and everyone, the majority of people, believe that it is the manager that runs the city, that runs everything, as opposed to it being a council manager form of government, which it is. You have what Glenn Richard refers to as a strong manager form of government, and that's only because they allow that. If they allow that, then that's what you got. But the citizens want to see more shared power in terms of.
And we'd like to see the commission take control and give clear direction to the city
Absolutely.
manager.
Which they have the right to do by
Right.
the current charter.
Right,
but
I think they do too, but
that's
if
why I
we need
said,
if we need to strengthen the language, then
to
so
make
be
it clearer for
Right.
them, as I said
Right.
that to Gary Leary last night, I said, okay, so you wanna give them more muscle, okay,
Right.
so you give them more muscle, and then they don't have any excuse as to why they're not doing, taking the bull by the horn and doing stuff, because they can't say, well, it's not really clear in the charter what we can do. Well, it'll be pretty clear as to what they can do. I need to say that you're listening to Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards. My guests, of course, are individuals from the Save Our Neighborhoods group, and Weegie Kuendig, the president, and another member who is Johnnie Ponder. And this is Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards. This is WLE BIG 1380 AM on your radio dial in Ormond Beach, Florida, and Goliath Radio. We're happy to have all of you with us, and this show will be uploaded so that you can actually not only listen as you're listening now, actively, presently, but you will be able to access this information later as well. Any other key issues? Because I know there are a total of, about 20?
We had 18 issues, and actually the Charter Review Commission talked about at least 12 of them.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't all make it to their priority list or their action list, but they did at least discuss them. Something that we talked about was quarterly reporting by the city manager or the finance director on monies that are spent on each zone.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the CRAs, so that the citizens can be kept more up to date. That kind of morphed on this list into the mayor is going to give a state of the city
address. That is very key. That is so important to these people to be put in the charter.
That seemed to have a lot of support on the Charter Commission in the beginning, but it kind of just dropped off of there. But
I couldn't even believe, somebody said, I won't say who, last night at the meeting said that all of the cities and towns are doing this. I want somebody to show me that, because I've not seen that. And if they're doing it, they're not doing it because
You
it's
mean
in
the
charter.
state, the state of the city?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And somebody in the media is not getting the message because they aren't covering it if it's happening. So
Right, and I don't think it's a bad idea.
yeah, I agree there should be sharing, but
Right.
why wait and do that once a year?
Right.
I mean, why not then share as you're sharing at the meetings, or once a month at one of the weekly meetings that you're doing, share with the people what's going on.
Right.
You know, we need to be very open, and we want this seamless kind of government, so that kind of would allow some of that. But so you said it went very strong. I know it was a recommendation by the chair, Mayor Ritchie, former Mayor Ritchie.
But it didn't seem to make it to the list. Now, they did, I think, with the audit procedures, I don't know. I think that what they want to do is make sure that the finances are independently audited.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important to all the commissioners, and I think it was important to the Charter Review Commission too.
Absolutely, because there should be an independent auditor.
Right.
And currently, I believe that person works for the city manager.
Yes, yes.
And has been.
So hopefully that will be something that comes forward, because we think that's very important too. But along the way, we would like to see what money is being spent and where it's being spent. It does not mean that each zone should get equal amount spent in it. I mean, if something, catastrophic happens in one zone, you have to fix it, So we're not asking, there was some discussion on the Charter Review Commission to actually equalize the money being spent, and that just, I don't see how that works. That's my personal opinion.
Absolutely,
and
if they went after more grant money, they'd have more money to
true.
Actually contribute into some of these ones that are.
That's another.
Yeah, that's another issue.
That's a good thing to do.
Yeah, so that one, that kind of reporting is what they're still in favor of, like a quarterly thing by the financial people.
And of course there were, everyone, including Save Our Neighborhoods, wanted us to get rid of any old language that superseded anything in the state or of their eminent domain language.
Because by law, it's already void.
That's right. It doesn't matter, and it just clutters
up. Absolutely, absolutely.
Clutters
and
up
a lot
the
of that
chart.
stuff they're going to remove.
Yeah. So that is happening.
Other than the ethics one, which actually is superseded by the state, but the mayor did warn, and I would agree with him, that he wants to have some language in there that says that we're abiding by the state, so that candidates or elected officials or staff do not lose sight of the fact that they do have rules to follow, and that they have been developed and they are part of state law, and that we follow that, even though that goes without saying. In fact, it is stated in the charter wherever we don't have something that we do abide by the state law. And there are some areas that we cannot, we can have stronger language, but we can't have weaker language, like election laws and finance and the like. Were there other?
Well, there were a couple other things. We wanted vacant senior staff positions filled within 4 months. There was quite a to-do over with the fire chief not being appointed, and that just caused ill will.
Absolutely.
And it made people question the process. And I think
why.
Well, yeah, exactly. So what we asked for is vacant senior staff positions to be filled within 120 days. That's 4 months. And that seemed like a reasonable amount of time for somebody to serve as in an interim while they did a search. And one other thing that we supported, Save Our Neighborhood supported, was any bond issues supported by property taxes, including the CRA bond, should be voted on by the citizens, either at the next scheduled election or in a special election. And because in actuality, we do have bonds, and we don't have that many. It wouldn't be like you'd be running to the polls every week to vote on a bond issue.
And these are things that indenture actually the residents.
Absolutely, but that also didn't make it to the list, so.
And then you also had, though, that a member of the commission, if on the ballot, should not be a member of the canvassing board, which the county just went through. And, it kind of, you would think, goes without saying, except that, the county canvassing board actually becomes the canvassing board for our city. But if things were to change, it's good to say that, since, in the charter, I believe it does make mention of the canvassing board, that they can elect, they have to, each election actually choose to have them handle their election. So there is the opportunity and possibility that this could happen. So that would make sense as well.
And another thing that we had on there was that we wanted the city to maintain, now, this may or may not need to be in the charter. I mean, there could be some things on this list that don't need to be in the charter, but we feel if they were, it would be better. The city shall follow code standards and maintenance standards for all city-owned property.
That's a standing joke, actually. Around the city. Actually, you know, when I came to, we're talking years, because when I came to work for the city, I was saying, you know, when they closed in, remember they closed in the parking area that was under City Hall?
Okay.
You remember when that happened? And people were talking about, okay, so what are they gonna do? They're gonna close it in, and then they're gonna make offices and stuff, and people were saying actually that the upper part didn't even meet code. And so what were we gonna do about the lower part? And the joke was, as it always is, well, you know, the city's the one who actually enforces the code, etc., and they don't pass their own code, so, you know,
you know, mainly we were thinking about buildings that the city owns that have not been in the past maintained. And at this point, it would cost so much money to fix them.
Yeah, just because they've gone for so long.
Right, because they've gone so long without maintenance. It's created its own problem, and we saw that firsthand in our meeting last night.
Yes, we had a rat at the meeting. An uninvited guest, yes. We did see it too, yes. It was a big one also.
But, you know, the conditions in a couple of these buildings are just deplorable, really.
And, you know, in line with that, the prices that are being charged, the increased fees that are being charged to our residents and citizens to utilize city-owned facilities is just ridiculous. I mean, some of the prices have gone up more than 100%. And I was in one location because we're gonna have our family reunion here next year, and you know, the individual was saying that not only has it gone up more than 100%, but what's happened is that there now is reduced participation and requests to utilize those facilities, and as a result, of course, people say, well, God, why should we staff it to do anything, because nobody's using them? Well, they're not using them because you've gone up so high on the rent and everything else that it takes.
It makes it difficult
so you're
to
forcing,
use, and even
in a city that's one of the poorest cities in the county, to actually expect that people are going to be able to pay those really enormous. Yes, absolutely.
And you know, the two new buildings in Midtown are beautiful and wonderful. But we need to be able to use them. And if it means, in the beginning, not getting as much money from that as we'd like, they're going to stand empty, and that's going to be horrible.
Oh,
and then we'll just have empty
because
spaces
they're there for the residents.
People aren't going to go to those older buildings either if they're not maintained, and they've even raised the prices of those buildings.
Yes, all of them,
And I know that there are groups that have left City Island Rec Center because they could afford to pay a higher price, but they said, now why should we pay a higher price for a building?
They aren't giving us anymore, they're not cleaning up better, it's not
a building that's not in decent condition, and they went to another city.
And so when the residents can't afford to pay it, to use it, and now they're having a contract with people from outside of the city to actually come in and use it.
Right.
Right. Something's lost there
We
somewhere.
need to revisit that
Yeah,
pay
that-
schedule
yeah,
and see,
that-
bring it back and find out what's going on with that.
Absolutely. And Johnny's been sitting here patiently, but she does have some key issues that we need to be aware of. And one of them has to do with what we just talked about,
Yes.
that we definitely need to look at and revisit that pay schedule, because residents and people who reside in Daytona Beach are really being priced out of utilizing city facilities. And young, old, we need to be concerned about our youth, concerned about our elderly, concerned about all the groups that are there that want to actually utilize and put money into back in the city coffers, but they can't afford those prices. And again, you're talking about the poor city, and you're talking about the fact that this is about public service. And I mentioned the other night about public service, and it's like people saying, public service, I mean, we're talking about money. We want to make money. Well, government is not in the business of making money. If it was in the business of making money, it would be private, okay? Public is not in the business of making money. No, it's not in the business of losing money either, but it's not in the business of making money. That's why with transportation, you will never ever find a place that makes money with transportation, because it's a losing deal from the get-go, but it meets a public need. Now, Johnnie, there's an issue that you brought to the forefront to me that had to do with our schools and what's happening with our schools, as well as a need for youth programs. And I know that's something, Weegie, that Save Our Neighborhoods, along with Johnnie as a member, you guys are concerned about as well. But share with us a major issue that you've seen and that you're concerned about.
Yes, Campbell Middle School, the most dangerous school out of a lot of counties. It's not just Volusia. We're talking Lake, we're talking Seminole, and I think that's
Central
tragic.
Florida, I think.
Yeah. And I've sent it out to as many people as I could find, and we need to work on that. We need to talk to the principal and work together on trying to see, why is this happening? Why is this school so bad?
And they do have great programs. Rotary West has some super great leadership programs that they put on there. But we've got to do something to safeguard, protect our children, and allow them the opportunity and the freedom to get a good education. And you can't do that when you're scared, all around. Now, share with them the information, that information that you've gotten, because I believe this was on Channel 9.
Yeah, it was on Channel 9, and someone called me and told me about it, and I went online and picked it up and emailed it out to Weegie and everyone, and so that we will be aware of what's going on.
And the principal at Campbell said, I guess he wasn't aware of it either, because he said he was surprised to see that. I saw the response he sent you.
And
surprised to see that Campbell's #1.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the great programs, but let's also talk about the safety issue, for youth there. And you're trying to get people really to organize and get together, work together to really
on one accord, instead of me going and and everybody going. If we all sit down and strategize and say, okay, what can we do to help them, to help our kids?
Absolutely.
Because our kids are our future, and we need to make sure that they are safe and they are learning. There's problems with gangs in different schools, and we need to work with Carla Kwan and Chief Michael Chitwood, and we need to do that to help our city, because if it happens in Midtown, and I represent Midtown in many areas, if it happens in Midtown, that's the core of your city. It's going to spread all over your city.
Absolutely.
So I always say, and Weegie gets upset with me, I always say, I'm not going to say anything bad, that if your core is rotten, your whole apple is rotten. And we're the core of the city. You have to come through Midtown some way or another. You're coming through Midtown. And we want good things to happen in Midtown, just like the rest of the city.
Yes,
and
throughout the neighborhoods, not just certain key locations.
Yes.
There's this idea that if business people invest in this small portion of the city, that's going to spill out in everything else. But it's like the trickle down theory. It does not work that way. You really got to get people involved, as they do at Save Our Neighborhoods, with different people from all over the city coming together and working together and talking about what the issues are and trying to come up with some common strategy so that they work together on it. And I know after you mentioned that to me, because I wasn't aware of it, I didn't watch Channel 9 when they were talking about that. I've been to Campbell several times and especially participating in some of the Rotary stuff they've had. But we do know there are a lot of good programs that are there, but I was not aware of that, and I mentioned it to Pastor Larry Edwards, and he's bringing it to the Black Ministers Association, the Black clergy, so they can get involved as well. Because it's, it takes, I know we say that a lot, but it does take a village. It takes the community. That's what the village is, the community coming together, working together to really resolve these issues that are there. And our young people, we talk a lot about their being our future, but they're our present. Because if we don't do right in the present, they won't be in the future. So you don't wait for you deal with it now. Now there were a couple other issues that you had mentioned too.
I'm with Midtown Heat, and that's a conjunction of the health department, and I'm working with them, and I'm the chair of that board. And Midtown Heat is Health Equity Action Team. And basically in 32114, we're trying to get a lot of better equity for health issues. We got Halifax Hospital on my board. I have the Housing Authority on my board. Weegie, Save Our Neighborhoods is on the board. And we have a lot of great help with Suzanne Grubbs. And there's so many people helping us with this. And that's what we have to do. We have to bring all kind of people together. I try to get a lot of people to join Save Our Neighborhoods because we work together in strength. That's how we're going to get things done.
Absolutely.
So,
and I remember the the broken glass theory about
the broken
window theory. Absolutely. The fact that you really have, when you have deplorable situations and then people start then focusing and seeing it as a slum as opposed to this is a place that we really can come together, fix up, make it palatable for the area, for the neighborhood, and people will feel better about it based upon just the way that it looks. And I know that's something I believe that Chief Chitwood also buys into, along with the community policing. So these are things that we have to come together to do. And, divided we fall, united we stand, and we should stand united. That's what Save Our Neighborhoods is about. That's what HEAT is about. And I know that this organization has been going forward, how many years now?
Before it was named Midtown Heat, it was a PACE organization.
Right.
And it's been about 5 years altogether. 4
or 5, yes. I've actually had, I had members from the health department, and the young man who started out with that, who was a local, who's going off to college now.
But he's coming back at the end of the month.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Johnson.
I know he had said that he would.
Johnson. He's coming back.
Awesome.
His father is the president of T. Small, principal of T. Small. And so he is coming back to help us.
Wonderful. And that's what it takes. And and in closing, what would you guys share? Because I know you want to share some things too, and the importance of people really getting involved and not just sitting back and saying, that's the problem, that's Midtown's problem, or that's Beachside's problem, or that's Mainland's problem, or whatever, and people like to say, that just like in Zone 4, which I used to represent where I live, they got it going on, they got this, they got that, etc. But, we still have crime issues and other issues as well that we come together and we work on, and we don't sit by and say, take whatever, truthfully, what the government says. We demand some stuff, and that's what people have got to do. They've got to know that they have rights. They have a right to demand a certain quality of life. I don't care where you reside, in the city, in the county, in the nation. Absolutely. And so all the neighborhoods coming together and saying that this is what we want. As our elected representatives, you should want to know what it is that we want, what we're interested in, and we're trying to share this with you. But don't give turn your heads or ignore or give a deaf ear to what it is that we're bringing forward.
Well, I think you cannot have a strong city without a strong neighborhoods and places where people want to live. We have to have that. We don't want our kids moving away. And when you even think about businesses locating here, if they perceive that there's no place for their employees to live, or there is no place for them to go to school, they're going to work here maybe, or they're going to locate completely in another town.
Absolutely.
Or they may work here and live someplace else. And that really affects the value of our town. I think it's really important. And Johnnie, I have to say, Johnnie and I work very closely together, and we talk about one city all the time, and that we can't be divided, because what affects one of us
Absolutely.
will eventually affect everything else. And I love your knowledge is power is exactly
Absolutely.
right, and that's why I spend the time that I spend trying to get people involved and send out as much information as I can. And I really focus on the city. I'm pretty narrow because I can't do everything.
Right,
But
absolutely.
my focus is the city because I love it, and I think it has enormous potential. And I don't think that we need to just accept anything that comes down the pipe, because I think we're all collectively better than that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think that we have to give voice to our residents, all of our residents.
And not just settle for stuff. In
Right.
fact, I was so upset about a couple of things today. I actually wrote a little poem and thing about selling that I'm going to put on Facebook and I'm going to put on my website too, because people need to stop selling for stuff when they can get better, do better in everything else. And like you say, we're better than that.
Right.
We're better than that. And both of you ladies, I should say, you're going to all kinds of meetings.
Yeah, we do.
You're there speaking out and, standing up for issues and the like. And I just applaud you both. And I know that it doesn't make you well liked in some places too, because you stand up and you speak out. But hats off to you, and I just applaud you because, and I've said this to our listeners and to our residents and everything else too. I said, you guys should just thank those few individuals, because you're few in number, who will actually take the time, make the time to stand up, to speak out on issues that are important, not just to you, but important to everybody. Giving a voice to the people and a voice to the issues, and a face to whatever it is that is of concern to the residents and to the community overall. Because it's easy for people to look at a number and say, well, we'll disregard that number, but it's harder to disregard a face, disregard numbers in terms of people, the people that they represent. So again, shout out to you both.
Thank you, and to you too for all of your hard work.
Yes.
Well,
You've been a big supporter of Save Our Neighborhoods, and we really appreciate that.
well, and we're all strengthened by the strength of each of us.
Absolutely,
I think,
and we'd love to have more people involved, but the truth is sometimes, Gwen, people get tired of fighting, and they kind of
That's
drop,
where a
and they
lot of them
kind
are.
of drop out, and we would like all of those people to come back.
And you can't
and-
get tired. This
Right.
is a.
You can't give up.
You have to keep going. We all get a little down on that one knee, but if we don't try to make it better, it won't get better.
Oh, absolutely.
And we all
Absolutely.
have to participate. I don't care if you're fat, black, white, I don't care. We all
Whatever.
have to work.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna listen to anybody and everybody, because there is nuggets in the craziest people you think of.
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody may come up with something that you may think.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
we
And I
need
tell
to
you,
do
some of the best knowledge you get is talking to some of these homeless people,
Yeah.
because they had a life before that, and they have experience, and they have, I wonder how many people have actually, I read that the consultant that's going around that's talking to homeless and trying to come up with a concept is actually talking to the homeless people, because they may have some ideas as to how to solve the homeless issue. And just like our residents and people who live here have ideas about how to solve the issues and the problems. And they aren't trying to come up with wild ideas, aren't trying to, the biggest thing that people love to say about residents is that they're trying to stop development.
Right.
That's not what they're trying to do, because they understand that development helps to keep the tax base
Absolutely.
down. Absolutely. But what they're trying to do is trying to ensure that it doesn't impinge on their quality of life the same quality of life that those developers are going and living somewhere else and enjoying.
That's
You know,
exactly
so,
right.
that's what needs to be understood, so.
And we also have to clean up what we have.
Yes, and keep it clean.
Yeah, and keep it clean.
You
My
know.
mom told me that, you know, you have to do that. You have to keep what you have clean in order to progress to get something else. Because
Yeah.
if where you're doing it is not clean and it's not kept up, then who's gonna wanna pay property and come in your neighborhood?
And you know, it's almost like with the beautification awards that they give, they almost need to wait 6 months out and see how they're keeping them up and maintaining them before they give them a beautification award. Because a lot of these beautification award people, you know, they get the award and then they let it like run ragged and weedy and everything else. It just,
You're talking more about commercial properties, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen
uh-huh.
that happen.
yeah, it does.
We all-
They get their award and then that's the end of it. We don't have to invest any more money. And so hats off and shout out to all those businesses who understand that
Absolutely.
the way your business looks on the outside is what draws people on the inside. And then the way you keep it on the inside is what keeps them coming back. You know, the bathrooms and the floors and all of that kind of stuff. And people look at that as much as how does the food taste or what kind of service did I get, etc. That needs to be communicated to our employers and their staff that they're courteous and treat people like they want them to be there. That's a whole nother show, right?
Yes, yes.
But my thanks to both of you for coming on and sharing with our listeners in terms of the issues and concerns. And these go beyond really the Charter Review Commission. These are issues and concerns that involve all of us in terms of government and in terms of our quality of life and what we want to see, you know, happening in terms of that framework of how our government operates and what it is that we can do and how they work with us. So,
We have to demand better if we want better.
yeah,
I like
absolutely.
that demanding. You have to demand.
Yeah, because
Time out for
you
asking because
settle,
they're not listening to us.
you settle for less, and less is what you're gonna get,
That's
or
true.
lesser
Lesser.
than that. So, closing comments on what you think people need to do.
They need to hopefully join Save Our Neighborhoods. They need to get more involved. They can always call Weegie or get Weegie anywhere. We meet, she'll tell you the times that she meets. And we just need to get involved. This is our city, and we, the citizens, need to have some more say, and not just the elected officials, because we did elect them, but they kind of like not listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we gotta, wait a minute, it's getting on vote time.
Yeah, and
Remember us.
that happens with longer terms where they'll start listening that year before the election.
Yes.
And we just share with them how they can, do you have a website?
We don't have a website, but
How best to
Save
contact
Our
you.
Neighborhoods
Yeah.
is open to every resident of Daytona Beach. And we don't have dues. You just come to the meetings, which are the fourth Wednesday of every month at the City Island Rec
It's
Center.
potluck,
And
so there's
it's
some food.
potluck, and
Bring
you come
something,
at,
yeah.
you know, 6:15, and we start our meetings at 6:30. And you can always email me at Kuendig, Kuendig, at AOL.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of my big things that I've always said is that we don't tell neighborhoods what they want.
Mm-hmm.
We let them tell us as a group what they want, and then we support what they want.
Mm-hmm.
We don't try and tell people what to do, but we try and support each other. Each
Right.
neighborhood has its own characteristics,
Right.
and they need certain things. But as a group of Save Our Neighborhoods, we like to support what people want for their own neighborhoods. So I'm just hoping we can get, I really love young people, and we had a few nice, really nice young people come last night to our meeting, and I'm happy to see that. I'd love to see more young people come to our meetings, and I'd like to get some of the people who say, it's no use,
Yeah.
and
give
that
it
have
up
left,
to-
right.
Give it another chance.
Right, just give us
But
another chance.
they've lost hope.
Yeah.
They've lost hope because when they say they want little things, then that doesn't get done. So the bigger things, they just say, well, forget it, nobody's
Mhm.
listening.
Mhm.
And I want our representatives to understand that that's where we are as citizens. As little peons, we are feeling that we don't have any hope.
Mhm. As a result, when you hold a meeting, an open forum or something, and people don't come, that's part of the reason.
It is part of the
It
reason.
is part of it.
Well, again, hats off to you guys.
Well,
Shout
thank
out.
you
Thank
too.
you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to our listeners. Remember to join us every Thursday starting at 6:15 or somewhere there, would be. As we discuss the issues to inform and empower you, our listeners. Also remember to go to the website, www.gwen-truth.com, so you can access all that all-important information that will make you all-powerful, and where you can actually click on and you can see the YouTube links to this show and other shows as well. Until next time, be informed, be empowered, and stand tall for that which is right and truthful, which Save Our Neighborhoods is doing. Johnnie Ponder, Weegie Kuendig, and so am I, and hopefully so are you. Until next time, this is Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards, and like all of us, we're still standing. You be blessed and have a great week.
Truth with your host, Gwen Azama-Edwards, exclusively every Thursday night on WLE 1380.